Star Trek, now with 100% less lens flares. Star Trek Beyond is the third film in this rebooted alternate timeline Star Trek series of films. It once again brings back Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Karl Urban, Zoe Saldana, Simon Pegg, John Cho, and Anton Yelchin as the crew of the Enterprise: Captain Kirk, Spock, Bones, Uhura, Scotty, Sulu, and Chekhov. The movie takes place 3 years after Into Darkness, where the crew of the Enterprise is pretty much 3 years into their 5-year mission in uncharted space. They're responding to a distress call and suddenly get attacked by a swarm of aliens, led by the evil Kroll, played by Idris Elba. The Enterprise is destroyed, and the crew find themselves stranded on a planet and have to try to fight to survive. Now, I've reviewed the past 2 Star Trek movies before. I reviewed the first one around the time the second one was about to come out, and I love the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. For a while, I was always, stuck up about Star Trek because I'm always a Star Wars guy. I will still be a Star Wars guy, but I always looked down upon Star Trek because I just thought it was too nerdy, even though I haven't even seen any of it yet. But when I saw that first movie, I was like, well, this is actually pretty good. And then I rewatched some of the old movies, a couple episodes of the original series, The Next Generation, and while I don't call myself a Trekkie, I definitely have become a Star Trek fan in some capacity. Then Into Darkness came out, and I loved it for the first half of the movie. Then the second half comes in, and while it's still entertaining and has good performances all around, the plot is very convoluted due to very bad screenwriting by Robert Orci, Alex Kurtzman, and Damon Lindelof. And then the ending of the movie I actually hate. I hate the ending of Star Trek Into Darkness. But on the whole, I think it gets quite a bad rap, especially since it's not the worst Star Trek movie out there. Those two were directed by J.J. Abrams. So now we have Star Trek Beyond, which I think a lot of people were worried about because there's some mixed reactions to Into Darkness, but also J.J. Abrams is not back to direct this because he was off in a galaxy far, far away. So here we have Justin Lin, who is mostly known for directing most of the Fast and the Furious movies. So in the minds of a lot of people, myself included, we were thinking, oh no, they're gonna make this movie go full retard. It's not even gonna care about Star Trek at all. But as time went on and we got some more trailers, I thought, you know what? The reason those Fast and Furious movies are as stupid as they are is because they're all written by the same guy, Chris Morgan. So when you compare something like Fast 5 to Furious 7, which the latter is not directed by Justin Lin, they feel like the same movie regardless. And if you saw the movie Better Luck Tomorrow, which was a small independent film that Justin Lin made before doing Fast and Furious, you can tell that he is a very competent filmmaker if you give him the right script. And with Star Trek Beyond, since this is not written by Chris Morgan or the writers of Into Darkness, you get a very, very well done Star Trek movie. It's not my favorite of the bunch. That's actually tough. But let's get into what I really like about this movie, because this actually was kind of a surprise for me. The dynamic between all of your main characters is really good. Hell, I might even go one step further and say it's better than in the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek, because at this point, the crew of the Enterprise is together. These people have known each other for some time, so you really do get that bond that we saw in the original series back in the 60s. And it really works. And once again, all the actors do a fantastic job. Chris Pine, at this point, he is the Captain Kirk that we've seen in the original series. Zachary Quinto still does a really awesome job as Spock, and so does Karl Urban as Dr. McCoy, or Bones. And a lot of the action scenes are very exciting. Probably the highlight for me is when the Enterprise is getting torn in half. And there's a lot of emotion in that scene because the Enterprise itself is a cultural icon, that to see it get demolished and just torn apart is a little sad. Although I will say for the action scenes, there are a few moments where the hand-to-hand combat scenes are filmed a little too close, which is kind of shocking considering that Justin Lin filmed the action scenes in Fast and the Furious so well. But hey, the action scenes are still exciting. And the way the film is shot is also very different from the first 2 movies. As I've joked about in the beginning of this review, there are no lens flares this time around, so you really get to see the Enterprise bridge and wow, this actually looks really nice without all of these lens flares in your face. There are also a lot of interesting swooping or panning shots where like we see the inside of the bridge from outside the ship and it just moves around, and we see the inside of the ship from outside of the ship in space. And there's one really cool shot where the Enterprise is at warp, but we see it from a distance and sideways, something we've never seen. Hell, we've never even seen a Star Wars movie show light speed like that before. So you can definitely tell there's a difference in direction with this movie, and I welcome it. One little detail I really love about this movie is that in the beginning we get to see the entire crew of the Enterprise act as a family. We see them being friends when they're not on the job. We see them developing intimate relationships, and it brings a much nicer element that I thought was kind of missing from the first two J.J. Abrams movies, because those movies really did focus on the main characters. And granted, this movie does focus on the main characters also, but it is nice to see just extras and other crew members around the Enterprise acting like family members. I did have some flaws with this movie. One of them is really big. Some of the main flaws involve the new characters. One of the new characters here is an alien named Jayla, who's played by Sofia Boutella, who is good in the movie and is a cool character, but I don't think they really do much with her. I feel like she just kind of is there to be the native girl, and her introduction is kind of like Neytiri's introduction in Avatar. So there's not a whole lot to this character, although I would definitely like to see her in another Star Trek movie in the future. In terms of your villains, we have Idris Elba, who plays Karl, who looks cool and looks menacing. Idris Elba's got the voice to pull off a menacing appearance. But unfortunately, this villain is just very generic and snarling, and there's not a whole lot to him. In fact, the movie has a point when they try to give him a backstory, which is usually good because we need to know the villain's motivation in order to really hate him or kind of see where he's coming from. But the backstory they give gives us answers, but more questions. So I just don't think this villain was handled very well. I mean, say what you want about Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan. At the very least, we knew Khan's motivations, and Benedict Cumberbatch truly was menacing. Now, the big problem I have with this movie involves one scene in the finale of the film. I don't want to say what exactly happens, but it's really very much a Fast and the Furious kind of moment, where it's just so stupid that for a second it takes you out of the movie, considering that this movie is kind of smart. It happens near the end, which you'll know it when you see it. But on the whole, Star Trek Beyond is a really great Star Trek movie in my opinion. It blends what made the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie work so well with elements that we love from the original series back in the 60s, and it really is one of my favorite Star Trek movies. I mean, Wrath of Khan and the 2009 one will still be better. But in terms of the three movies in this new series, this is my second favorite. It might have elements that I like more than the 2009 one, but the 2009 movie was so important for getting me into Star Trek that I just have more appreciation and respect for that movie. But this one is definitely worth seeing in your lifetime. If you're a Star Trek fan, chances are you won't be disappointed. You'll actually be very surprised if you saw the trailers and went, this is just going to be Fast and the Furious mixed with Star Trek. Because it's not. It's much better than that. And that's my review for Star Trek Beyond. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you, there is only one.